Fabula Est Princeps, Maleficarum, Part 2, written and narrated by Therence, Terry B. Palino. Introduction. Hi, hello, and welcome everybody to the second part of the first episode of A Fabula Est Princeps entitled Maleficarum. In this part, we'll first be getting a look into the island country of Fidalaro and the people that run it. Introduction. Hi, hello, and welcome everybody to the second part of the first episode of A Fabula Est Princeps entitled Maleficarum. In this part, we'll first be getting a look into the island country of Fidalaro and the people that run it. We'll also get an idea about the evil that has been plaguing the land and why an Inquisitor has been summoned to it in the first place. This time, we're going to find out that even tropical paradises like Fidalaro can harbor threats that could spell doom for all its inhabitants. Self-promotion and quick update. Before we begin though, if you've enjoyed my work so far, please feel free to do the following. Like my videos, share my videos, subscribe to my channel, hit that bell for notifications. I've recently started a Patreon account so that generous viewers out there can make donations. Don't worry though, it won't be mandatory. However, it would certainly help my case as I'm not exactly in a good place right now. I wouldn't have to resort to this if my current situation hadn't taken such a dire turn. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any suggestions or complaints, please post it down below in the comments section. Chapter 2. Nameless Fears. Inquisitor Tadeo and his 6 companions head for the nearby town of Bass to meet the locals proper. It is here that he and those with him will get a better idea of the kind of trouble that Fidalaro is currently in. It is also here that Tadeo will learn a bit more than he bargained for regarding the forces at work on the island country. From the letters of Inquisitor Tadeo, 10/10/2293, Era of Salvation. Inside the town hall of Bass, Fidalaro. To Lady High Inquisitor Madame Niobe Dumont, Box number 36, Inquisitorial Office of Battleworth City. I write this to you now as I and my companions rest here in the town hall of Bass after getting a tour of the surrounding countryside. I knew there was something amiss on this island the moment we arrived, but I didn't expect it to be this terrible. That said, I didn't come unprepared to Fidalaro. We are working now to gain a better grasp of the force that threatens this land. I will start with the beginning, when the old pastor, Reverend Escudero, led us to the town of Bass. We spent a good amount of time walking through a gravel path while the ships continued sailing towards the town's port. As we walked along the pebbles that lined the road, I saw that Fidalaro was really the tropical paradise it was said to be in some accounts. Lush jungles of mango, banana, and palm trees blanketed the sides of the road, and beyond them, I could see rolling hills in the distance. Tall and verdant green grass covered places where there were no trees, and I could almost imagine myself sitting under the dense foliage of the trees, hat over my face and sleeping soundly. But I knew the scenery was deceptive. After all, the people of Fidalaro wouldn't have called for an Inquisitor if their situation wasn't dire. To say that we were welcomed warmly by the townsfolk would be a gross understatement. Colorful pinions decorated the streets and rooftops of the town, and everyone cheered as the townspeople saw us. Normally, the telltale-leaded dark cloak, equally dark tricorn hat, and buckled leather boots are feared by local citizens for its absolute authority, but that wasn't clearly the case here. We were welcomed as heroes in Bass, and I could see that my companions were enjoying the attention. Civ and Soler marched proudly as Aurelio and Cato exchanged handshakes and pats on the back with the cheering townspeople around us. I didn't want to be too friendly with the locals, as any of them could be a witch after all, but I smiled at those who greeted me nonetheless. A pale young woman even offered me a bright red rose, and since I didn't want to embarrass her, I took it and gave her my friendliest smile. I was also fortunate that I was wearing thick leather gloves, as I noted that the rose given to me had uncharacteristically large and sharp thorns. Reverend Escudero soon led us to the town hall, which, I must say, was quite beautiful, reminiscent of comely manners in Battleworth City. We soon met Mayor Umberto, who was the central authority in Bass, and we were brought inside so he could speak to us in private. Mayor Umberto was a man of small stature, had a wiry frame, and wore a set of thick, horn-rimmed glasses. Reverend Escudero was about to leave when I asked him that I hadn't seen any of the people in the lynch mob on the beach in Bass. To this, the old pastor answered that most of those people had probably come from the city of Marlin, Fidelaro's capital, or Salmon, another large city to the south. Before Reverend Escudero left, I learned that most of the settlements on the island country was named after some variety of fish, just like the town of Bass. They had a town called Minnow, a city named Tuna, and a bustling metropolis to the north that bore the name Sturgeon. They also had a prosperous village called Cod, and even an offshore island called Anglerfish. I would learn more about these settlements with the names of fish later, as at that moment I wanted to learn more about the situation in Fidelaro. After the old pastor left, I immediately got to the point with Mayor Umberto. I told him that I was an Inquisitor of the Inquisitorial Order of Mortis Venatores of the Imperial Inquisition. I had come at the behest of a Mayor Jason Rodriguez, who stated that terrible forces were now at work in Fidelaro. He spoke of both famine and disease being rampant on the island country, but also made mention of supernatural incidents such as large numbers of people suddenly dying and sightings of monstrous creatures in the countryside. Then news reached Battleworth City of a great typhoon that had devastated much of the island country's infrastructure, and was why the powers that be assembled an inquisitorial team to go along with the relief goods that would be sent to Fidelaro. Now I told the mayor that the starvation and pestilence that gripped the island could have led some to hallucinate, and that the recent calamity could have caused some locals to exaggerate on the situation. I told Mayor Umberto that it was not very likely that a full inquisitor was needed for the troubles of Fidelaro, and that a small military detachment from the Imperial legions might have sufficed. However, the powers that be, I know that includes you, Lady Niobe, and Emperor Valerio III, wanted to be sure that there was nothing truly supernatural happening on the island. After the grueling Silent War that occurred more than a decade ago, no one in the Blaze Empire had the stomach for another costly confrontation with otherworldly forces, at least not yet anyway. To this, Mayor Umberto laid out the situation in Fidelaro. The troubles began with what he calls the Scourge, a strange fungal parasite that ate away at the crops of Fidelaro. It moved very quickly, infecting wheat, grain, and rice rapidly, and reducing them to malformed, disgusting, and almost unrecognizable plant matter. What's worse is if someone were to inadvertently ingest one of these fungi-infested foodstuffs, they would also gradually malform and go violently and dangerously mad, which makes for the plague that now troubled the island country. This was 5 years ago at least, when Fidelaro was still under the rule of Governor Benjamin Aquinas. At first though, nothing seemed amiss as the mayors worked together to keep the scourge contained. For the most part, it only stayed somewhere near the southern towns in Salmon City, the home of current governor Rudy Duarte. However, everything changed when a particularly powerful storm struck Fidelaro 3 years ago, and the authorities lost control and track of things. The scourge spread quickly after that, infesting farmlands to the east and west of the island country, and gradually made its way north to Sturgeon, home of Mayor Jason Rodriguez and his wife and current Vice Governor, Lena Rodriguez. Less than a year after that, Governor Aquinas abandoned Fidelaro and fled to another island country, perhaps Ulram to the far west or Catas to the south. He had even left a note stating that the situation could no longer be salvaged. The people of Fidelaro were on their own henceforth. I made a mental note to inform the nearest garrison of the Imperial Constabulary to look for this man. Acts of desertion, especially of one's own constituents, is not tolerated by imperial law. It is a crime punishable by death. Mayor Umberto also informed me that Mayor Rodriguez had been dead right around the time news spread of Governor Aquinas' abandonment of his nation, dead by his own hand if the doctors of Marlin were to be believed. He had taken his own life after it became apparent that the troubles of Fidelaro were too terrible to endure. Shortly after that, Mayor Rudy Duarte of Salmon became governor of Fidelaro, and things didn't exactly improve. While there were those who truly liked the old man, many believed he was too frail and senile to manage the island country efficiently, especially in this time of crisis. What no one anticipated, though, was Mayor Rodriguez's widow, Lena Rodriguez, to become vice-governess of the island country. Since then, the rivalry between governor and vice-governess became fierce as Lena gained popularity thanks to her husband's stellar performance as mayor of Sturgeon. The political issues were the least of Fidelaro's problems, however, as the scourge continued to spread like wildfire throughout the island country. Entire farms were decimated in a matter of days, and those unfortunate enough to have eaten from them became wild and monstrous savages. The infected wandered the lands of Fidelaro, spreading the scourge further with their touch and attacking anyone that got in their way. Some settlements were able to combat this, however, by building high walls over their farmlands and posting well-armed guards to protect them. Bass, minnow, tuna, and cod were fortunate enough to have the funds to do this, and larger cities like Salmon, Sturgeon, and Marlin already had standing walls to protect them. This worked, for a while at least. The recent typhoon that devastated Fidelaro did in for many walls of many a settlement in the island country. Bass was fortunate enough to still have most of its wooden walls intact, but other places, such as Minnow, were not so lucky. Marlin, Fidelaro's capital, was least lucky of all, as its walls were totally sundered and many of the fungal brutes, a word used by Mayor Umberto to describe those infected by the scourge, came inside like a horde of barbarians. Mayor Umberto then went on to tell me that the supernatural threats that plagued Fidelaro were more than just mere superstitious rumors and hallucinations. On an almost weekly basis, someone on the island would die, while in the throes of sleep paralysis. It wasn't clear what was causing it, but in the homes of all those affected, a mysterious old figure was often spotted, lurking around or standing over the victims. Local animals also started behaving strangely, often becoming aggressive without good reason. The mayor even fearfully told me that there were sightings of deer and even rabbits actively attacking people. I asked if there were any survivors of said attacks, both the one involving sleep paralysis and the aggressive animals, and Mayor Umberto informed me that they were few and far between. He told me, though, that he could round up the survivors in Bass tomorrow, and that I could talk to them in the afternoon. He also informed me that he had already sent messengers to the surrounding settlements, including the city of Sturgeon, the town of Salmon, and what remained of Marlin, the island country's capital. In 3 days' time, he told me that the governor, vice-governor, and the mayors of the remaining settlements will come to meet me in Bass, an arrangement that I found both agreeable and convenient. I then asked the mayor about the recent witch hunts, and the mayor could only sigh with dismay as a response. As I suspected, the witch hunts were simply a result of desperation and human nature. According to Mayor Umberto, they began only in the previous year in Salmon when Mayor Sara Duarte accused a man of witchcraft, which led to the man's dying at the hands of a lynch mob. Knowing what I was going to ask, Mayor Umberto told me that the local sheriff, Rock Dolorosa, not only tolerated these acts, but in fact actively encouraged them. The man reasoned that the people should be allowed to vent their frustrations in these troubled times. Sheriff Dolorosa said that since most of the targets of these witch hunts were outcasts anyway, no one would miss them. He insisted that such illegal and unethical practices were even beneficial, as they ridded society of what he thought of as lowlifes. I made another mental note to have words with this sheriff later. It was stated by none other than Yeshua himself that all are entitled to a fair trial. Mere rumors and accusations should not be enough to have someone arrested, let alone executed. I would see to it that this Sheriff Dolorosa would face the consequences of his mishandling of justice. Mayor Umberto then told me about Governor Duarte's strange obsession with witches. Ever since his term began as governor, he always blamed witches for the current state of Fidelaro. He believed that the scourge, the sleep paralysis deaths, the sudden strange behavior of animals, and even the suicide of Mayor Rodriguez could be attributed to witchcraft. This was not incorrect, as the atrocities that led to the Silent War in Theldoras was all orchestrated by a coven of witches, but I still found baseless accusations distasteful. To be honest, devils, dragons, undead, and fae could cause the same kind of problems with or without the help of a human witch. Mayor Umberto went on about how Governor Duarte even led secret squads of would-be witch hunters to hunt down and kill those suspected of practicing witchcraft. In almost all his speeches since his instatement as governor, Governor Duarte spoke of nothing but witches and how the citizens should focus on finding and exposing them. This despite the fact that abyssal wizards, who were in a sense witches in their own right, were a vital part of the Blade's empire and its infrastructure. Since then, witch hunts have become a sporadic event, with random people being targeted by the populace, and are sometimes even led by deputies taken in by Sheriff Dolorosa. The city of Sturgeon was the sole exception to this, as Vice Governor Lena Rodriguez has refused to allow her citizens to participate in any witch hunts, and has been fiercely critical of Governor Duarte's campaign of ridding the island country of witches since its inception. The vice governor's actions and speeches against the governor's own has led to much tension between the two. Just recently even, the two resorted to harsh words when Vice Governess Rodriguez berated Governor Duarte's attempts to raise a crusade against a group of women who he claimed were a coven of witches. This has resulted in further hostility between the two, and Governor Duarte's camp have begun to accuse the Vice Governess of being a witch herself because of her stance against the witch hunts. This was a detail I found most interesting. With that, Mayor Umberto and my company decided it was getting late, and my companions needed to rest now. It was a long voyage after all, and it was nice to have our feet planted on solid ground once more. The mayor then informed us that he had rooms prepared for us in the town hall itself, to which my companions were quite pleased. So we parted ways then, and this is also where I will conclude this message for the meantime. Regards, Inquisitor Tadeo. To be continued. If you're enjoying this story so far and would like more of this, don't forget to like my videos, share my videos, subscribe to my channel, hit the bell for notifications. So stay tuned, and I'll see you all in the next episode of Fabula Est Princeps, Maleficarum.